measurably to the organization's growth, strengthened its programs, and countless individuals and families. And whereas the city of Capitola deeply appreciates Kristen's 11 years of steadfast service, leadership, and advocacy, which have left a lasting and positive legacy. Now, therefore, I, Margo Morgan, the mayor of the city of Capitola, do hereby extend gratitude and sincere appreciation to Kristen Brown for her outstanding service, leadership, and commitment serving on the Community Action Board. Would you like to come up and receive your proclamation?
Thank you. I'm just going to take a quick moment. I want to thank you for the recognition. It's truly been an honor to represent the city of Capitola on the Community Action Board for more than a decade. I was appointed in 2014, 2 years before I even ran for city council, and my 11 years on the Community Action Board is one of the longest relationships I've ever had. I was there before I met my husband, before I got elected, so it's very meaningful. I am very grateful to have been a part of so many milestones with this agency and to have had the opportunity to learn, grow, and be humbled by a deeper understanding of what it truly means to be more than just an ally. Sorry, what? Oh, okay. As you consider appointing someone to fill this seat, I urge you to do so with intention, be it a council member or a member of the public. The person who represents Capitola on the CAB board must be genuinely aligned with CAB's mission and values, and that includes equity, dignity, diversity, service, and inclusion. This role requires more than passive support. It requires a clear commitment to the community that CAB serves. CAB is a critical agency doing frontline work, and it directly shapes the health and well-being of so many in our county. The importance is reflected every day through programs like the Santa Cruz County Immigration Project, the Day Worker Center, the Youth Homelessness Response Team, and Hope Village, which is providing stable housing for more than 30 neighbors who would otherwise be unhoused. CAB's work is culturally responsive, grounded in social justice, and focused on ensuring that those who are most vulnerable in our community are seen, respected, and cared for. Especially in this moment, that work is incredibly important. So I will reiterate in closing that the appointment to the seat is very important. The person chosen must be wholeheartedly aligned with CAB's mission and values and willing to show up with clarity and conviction. Anything less risks undermining the purpose of the board and the impact of its work. I am so grateful to have had the opportunity to serve, and I can say with all honesty that my time on CAB has been life-changing. Thank you again, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Great, that will take us to presentation on the Golden Bell Award. Looking at our recreation director and our superintendent.
Put that right there. Well, thank you, Mayor Morgan and Vice Mayor Jensen, members of the council, for allowing me to present here tonight. Following those powerful words that were just shared, it's nice that there's some commonalities. I heard the power of equity and making sure that that's a reality in our community, and this award was really based on providing equitable access to our students. So, does the presentation show? Okay, just making sure. All right. So, do I wait for the presentation to be up there? Okay, just making sure. How you doing, sir? Good. There we go. So, as was said, I'm Scott Turnbull, the superintendent, super proud superintendent of SoCal Union Elementary School District. And proud to be side by side here tonight with Nikki Bryant, who, of course, you know well. Also here tonight from our district is Craig Broadhurst. Oh, and there's Enrique Domo. All right, thank you for being here tonight. And I'm here on behalf of our school board members too, who have busy schedules but would have liked to be here, and so I'm presenting on their behalf. And so really here tonight, I'm just here to share a simple story, one of, that included your partnership, provided opportunities for students, and brought us a little award of recognition, which is never a bad thing either. So let's start with what is CSBA. It's the CSBA Golden Bell Award. So what's CSBA? CSBA is the California School Boards Association. It's the leading organization in the state that provides professional development and collaboration to all the school board members across our state from nearly 1,000 school districts across the state. So there's a lot of members. And our board members lean into that organization to become ever more effective trustees. And the CSBA Golden Bell Awards is a program that recognizes innovative and effective programs for students. And Equity Swim was recognized as just one of those that's innovative and effective, and most simply and importantly, it just works for kids. So if we go to the next slide. The award there's different categories for the CSBA Golden Bell Awards. This award was won under the category of expanded learning and engagement. So this is learning that happens beyond the school day and supports the whole child, which really kind of accentuates that idea that while lots of learning happens in the classroom, it doesn't have to just happen within the four walls of the classroom. And in the case of this amazing program, happens within the confines of a swimming pool. Just a little bit about Equity Swim. I know you know it well. So it's one of those simple yet powerful ideas that in a coastal community, water safety matters. Swim lessons and junior guards are essential here. They're not just extras. And every child should have access to it, regardless of background or family income. And by removing barriers like language, transportation, and cost, the program provides safety, confidence, and belonging for our students. A picture says 1,000 words. This picture says it all, right? This is what access looks like, and this is what equity looks like. These students wouldn't have had the opportunity without this program. And finally, the last slide, I really just want to accentuate my main message here tonight, and that's one of gratitude. First and foremost, to your Community Services and Recreation Director, Nikki Bryant, without whom this program, this award, these opportunities for students wouldn't be possible. I also want to give a big shout out to Brennan Howard, who does a lot of the boots on the ground work to make sure that we get kids into the program. And so I just want to say that thank you for showing the community what collaboration can look like. Without the shared funding commitment from the City Council and our school board, it wouldn't happen. So thank you for your partnership, your leadership, and your support.
Thank you. Nikki, do you have anything?
I just, again, want to echo that this wouldn't happen without this wonderful partnership that we have with our school district and a little bit of vision to make sure that we are able to provide for everybody in our community and make our water safe. So thank you very much for all of that. And if you have any questions, we're available.
Any questions?
No, one of our trustees, Amanda Jackson.
Hi, welcome.
There's a situation on Highway 1 that
That's okay. Thanks for being
on behalf
here.
of the board just really wanted to thank you so much for our partnership. It's a really meaningful and special program.
Thank you.
Yep. Just another great collaboration with the school district. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Council, for championing that. Makes us really proud, and thanks for working so hard. Thank you.
Can I ask Can I ask how many students have been impacted or have benefited from this program?
Let's see, over the years, we have probably hit, under 70, but around there, yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you both.
Amazing. Thank you. All right, all good things. Moving on to item 4, additional materials.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, the City Council received additional materials for item 8A. There are 2 emails that have been made available for public review in the online agenda packet. One of the 2 emails is available for print in the back of the room. The other was received after the cutoff, but is available for public review online. For item 8D, staff provided an updated attachment as additional materials, and that is available for public review online and in the printed packet at the back of the room.
Great, thank you so much. That'll take us to oral communications by members of the public. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak on anything that is not on tonight's general government agenda. Come on up, state your name if you'd like it for the record. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Shu, and I live at 702 Orchid Avenue in a home that I've owned for over 23 years. I'm here to speak about...
You turn the mic on.
Is that better? I'm here to speak about the proposed public walkway behind my home because this proposal has a very real and significant impact on me and my family, and I want that impact to be clearly understood. The original and existing walkway runs along the side of my property and was historically used by school-aged children to access the school. Access was sometimes restricted by a locked gate, depending on the school administration, making it clear that this was a controlled school access route, not a general public walkway. If the gate was unlocked outside school hours, people did not walk directly behind my home. They typically went onto the field or used an established trail along the opposite side. The walkway now being proposed behind my house is entirely new. It is the result of the school acquiring city park land to install a new athletic field. And so in exchange, they gave you this strip of land behind my property and my neighbor's property. This land exchange benefited the school while placing a substantial burden on 2 homeowners. That's me, myself, and my neighbor. This new public walkway would directly affect my privacy, safety, and property value. A path behind my home adjacent to the school field with no natural surveillance or eyes on the street creates risks and serious safety concerns. Regarding property value, my real estate agent has advised me that most buyers will not consider buying a home with a public walkway behind their house. And he said that those that would expect a significant price decrease to the impact of at least a 20% lowering of my property value. I'm not asking you to take anything away from my neighbors or the public for my own benefit. Every resident in my neighborhood already has access to the park through a large public entrance on Monterey Avenue, which also has a dedicated parking lot. Public access already exists without routing people behind private homes. Because the walkway has not yet been installed, there is still an opportunity to alter its course and instead preserve this area as green space. This would provide a true public benefit by helping offset the heat and environmental impacts of the new artificial turf field and by supporting local flora and fauna. If this project does move forward as proposed, meaningful mitigation would be necessary, including higher and more secure fencing with privacy measures, motion sensor lighting, security cameras,
your 3 minutes.
restricted daylight hours, and lockable gate. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Goran Klepic. I'm former security guard of Zelda's on the beach. I did a front door with George. I'm accusing at the moment certain sheriff's deputies being involved in cocaine trafficking locally here on a local level. I don't know their names, unfortunately. I couldn't track them down, but I know how they look like. I know where they're located in Santa Cruz, and I have a court date or something, you know, and I just speak my mind. I do not care if I'm being threatened when I talk about that. I was a police officer one time overseas. I know what threats are. So, and to mention it even worse, I was in the army, so I will contact some army guys to come to that court date of mine when I talk also about Capitola village, what was happening back then in that summer. Andrew Daly knows exactly what I'm talking about. He made the arrest of somebody who was trafficking cocaine. He was the chief before. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to congratulate Mayor Morgan and Vice Mayor Jensen and the rest of the council for your new appointments and another year of willing to do this for us. We really appreciate all of you. And I also want to have Jessica and Kailash please thank the Public Works team, who was so much fun to watch all day today, like a little kid watching Bob the Builder. They worked really hard to clean up the beach today, so thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lynn Shu. I also live at 702 Orchid Avenue. I just wanted to follow up what my wife, the first person speaking, Tiffany Shu, I wanted to make clear that the property that we're talking about is adjacent to New Brighton Middle School, as well as the park that's also in that area. I don't know the name of the park, but it's accessed by Monterey Avenue. So I don't think that was made clear earlier, but there's two pieces of property that that are right next to the school, New Brighton, right next to the new athletic field. And so, just to finish, I think what we're saying is the walkway wouldn't benefit the public at large. In fact, it's going to adversely affect both my property as well as my neighbor's property. I mean, you can only imagine at night someone walking up and down that walkway without any reason. So there's already access to the park, ready access. That's already good enough. There's no reason to have another walkway through the rear of our properties. Anyways, I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak? All right, we will go to item 6. Let's go to staff comments first.
I believe we have a couple updates from staff.
Great, come on up.
Dr. Hurley is first, looks like.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to bring you up to date. We've had a few inquiries about the wharf. The temporary wharf improvements are all in place at this point. And the long-range planning effort that was moving forward, we had originally anticipated completion by December of 2025. But due to the numerous meetings on the mall updates, we slowed that down. But I want to let you know that we'll be bringing something to you within the first quarter this year. We're meeting with Fuse Architecture next week to see what the latest plan is that they've put together. So just so I know the public is interested in this topic. So that's the update for this evening. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Happy New Year. I have two short things to say. First is an announcement and a public thank you for our museum curator, Deborah Osterberg, and the entire museum board, some of who I believe are in the back of the room, for the installation of the wharf model, which is also now in the back of the council chambers. The model was donated. It is of Capitola Wharf as it was in about 1996. It was donated by Jeremy and Rhiannon Lundell and built by their grandfather by hand, Christopher Lundell. Costs to install and protect the model were paid for with public donations to the museum. And very important to note that the amazing wooden base was built by the museum board president, Brian Lagakis, who's here with us this evening. He donated his time in doing so. The model shows our appreciation for the wharf and its history, and I hope that everyone in the public will enjoy it where it is now. So thank you. We can maybe say thank you. Great. And then secondly, I just want to invite everyone to apply to participate in Discover Capitola, our rebranded civic engagement program. I'm really excited about how we're bringing this program to the public starting next month. Applications are accepted through the 28th of January. It's a really easy application. It's online. You have a link. It's on this flyer. There's a QR code. I'm trying to be very accessible. So please help spread the word and encourage those to apply, because we really want to welcome everyone that wants to learn, network, and grow to help the community together. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you. And thank you to the museum and the board members. All right, we'll come to council. Any comments this evening?
I'll start off. I'd like to thank Public Works. Our last series of storms were pretty significant, and I saw all our Public Works out working on the weekends, clearing drains, cleaning up a lot of leaves, so grateful for that. And with the soft opening of Rispin Mansion Park, it got fairly well beat up by the weather, but within a couple of days they had it looking beautiful again, so grateful for our Public Works. Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, Susan. A couple things just to echo Councilmember Clark's comments to Public Works. Thank you for all your hard work during the storm, and also PD. It was nice to get the updates from our chief. Also appreciate the outreach that our local governmental relations PG&E rep was doing. Jasmine Vargas was very helpful, updating us with that too. A couple of updates from the RTC. The Capitola Avenue overpass crossing is proceeding. It's delayed a little bit with the weather, but it looks like it might be opening sometime this month, and they're planning a ribbon cutting event sometime in February. There'll be more information coming about that in the future. A lot of questions get asked to me about the Bay Avenue corner ramp closure. That still has not been determined what those dates are. It will not be before March 1. But they'll be updating us later, and I just inquired about it this week, and so maybe some more updates to follow. Also, had a meeting with the RTC director, Sarah Christensen, and we got into a conversation about some other things that the RTC provides as services, which I think are important. They talk about ride-sharing programs that are very underutilized, participations like under 19%. They also, provide services on Highway 1. If you get a flat tire, there's tow trucks that show up and they change the tire and help you out and everything. And I asked her to reach out to the city staff and maybe in a future agenda to come and share about the things that the RTC does outside of just when we all talk about rail trail or just on-shoulder bus lane and stuff like that. And so I think it's just important for our community to understand how our tax money is spent. And so maybe that can be in conjunction. I know in the future, Metro might be approaching the council meeting and giving us an overview of there. So maybe in conjunction, those two could come together so we understand as community members what these transportation agencies provide us as service. And then last thing, just like to also echo that the completion of the wharf was kind of wrapping up. I saw that the new bike racks that CWEP and the community funded were just installed, and it finally seems like that's the final completion. I don't know if you've seen them or walked out in the wharf, but they're in the style of a wave, and they look very attractive, and it's really a nice touch, and it's a nice successful completion of a project. So that's all I had. Thank you.
I do have one. During one of the last meetings, Councilmember Jensen, Vice Mayor Jensen now, requested that we invite Metro to present. And I heard from Corey Aldridge, the CEO, and he'll come in March 12th. He'll come and present to the council regarding Metro and what they're all about.
Great. I would also support RTC coming if that's in conjunction with or on their own for a little informational piece. I definitely glad to be back here. I've walked through Rispin. If you haven't yet, please do. It's looking really great, and I can't wait to see kind of where we go with this. So thank you to Public Works. I know there's a lot that goes into it, and the beach maintenance. It's just January, so I know there's a lot going on for you guys. So thank you, and thank you to the PD. I think having the flashing sign in front of the village at all times is great. I noticed it's in English and Spanish. I think it's great. The new parking, there's still a learning curve, but that's all right. So thank you for all that everybody does, and that was all I had. So we'll move on to General Gov, item 8, let's go to consent. Item 7. So all of these consent items can be enacted in one motion unless somebody would like to pull an item.
I move items 7A through 7D.
I'll second it.
Great. We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Now we can go to general government. We'll start with item 8A. It's our 2025 special event report.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. Please don't be overly distracted by the photos that we included in this presentation. I don't know if you all have noticed, but the police department has taken a hobby of dressing up like this or like a turkey during Thanksgiving and walking around the village randomly. So anyway, it's been a fun activity. But so I'm going to be giving this presentation with Director Hurley. I never say your last name. So we are here to discuss or just give you an overview of the 2025 events that we've had. We all know Capitola has a lot of events, and we're hoping to get your input and provide direction moving forward into 2026 and determine if there's any additional information we should take back to our event coordinators. So we always start with kind of just starting with the background so that everyone understands the rules that we follow when we're engaging with folks that want to step forward and put on events. So we have our major events, our minor events, and I've listed here the thresholds. A major event, over 210 attendees, and notable impacts to the city. Minor events are a lot smaller, not requiring so much impact, no road closures, things like that are have impacts to the city. So overall in 2025, we issued 11 major special event permits, 20 minor event permits, and 30 city organized events. These slides are going to show you what those events are. As you can see here, a lot of the major ones that we have will involve, like I said, the road closures and impacts of the city staff, as well as police presence. And then we have our minor events like this that people enjoy, but we're not shutting roads down or closing access to public spaces. 30 city organized events. This is a little surprising to me, and I tried to included the months here, but I do have a slide going on to make it hopefully a little easier to see which months of the year are really affected by events. But here you have all of our city organized events. So overall, what we do is we debrief with the various stakeholders and community members, organizations that contribute to events or want to come forward and talk about events. And we found that this year was very successful. We had some busier events than we were normally expecting. I think Monty was quite a bit busier than we had anticipated in previous years. And one thing that I found in meeting with community groups and stakeholders was there was a real constant request to encourage any new events to come in to be on what's considered the shoulder seasons, because our busier season is greatly impacted by these events, where we're also working through tourism, kids being out of school, all of that. So we overall, so the police department handles billing out to event organizers for the time of officers, parking enforcement officers, public works assistants, because public works has to come out and put up barricades, things like that. So we billed for 876 hours, and 100% of those costs, which is listed there, were reimbursed back to the city from the event organizers, because we redid our fee schedule, as you all know, a couple of years ago. So moving forward, we are prepared to support the major and minor events and address any concerns that come forward beyond that. And here's what I thought might be a little easier to read when you see these events here and the months with the major and the minor, how many we have in each month. And this will go to Director Kelly.
Yes, thank you. So within recent code updates to our code, there's a new section within our coastal zone section that relates to coastal development permits tied to special event permits. So that is why I'm here for the first time co-presenting with our chief. There's 3 occurrences that if the criteria, if one or more are met, that require a coastal development permit. The first is that it's scheduled between Memorial Day and Labor Day and will be more than 2 consecutive days, including setup and takedown. When we talk about the lifeguards, the competitions, that qualifies under that first criteria. So that's why we're issuing a coastal development permit for the junior lifeguard competitions. And then also the second criteria is that the event occupies a portion of the beach, the wharf, public areas, or beach parking, and it has a potential for adverse effects on sensitive coastal resources. And within our the Capitola Beach Festival, because portions of that festival, they have normal impacts such as building sandcastles and fishing that we do all day long in Capitola. But with the nautical parade at night in the lagoon, we thought we should issue a CDP just to take precaution. And the third criteria is that a fee is charged for admission and or seating where no fee is currently charged. So that would be if there was a fee to, say, get on the wharf for a day because a special event was on the wharf. And the second criteria is, or if a fee is charged for preferred seating at an event, that less than 75% of the seating is free. So if there was a seated event, such as a concert, and say 50% of people had to buy tickets to that event, it would require a coastal development permit. So if we can go to the next slide. The coastal development permits, as I mentioned, the first criteria relates to the Coast Guard, the junior guards competitions, because they often last, there's the young guards and the older guards, so it's 4 consecutive days. And then the beach festival, just because of the possibility of an impact to a sensitive coastal resource. So with that, we'll move on to the staff recommendation.
I'll take it from here.
Okay, thank you.
So we're interested in feedback and adopting the resolution to approve the coastal development permit for 2026, Capitola Beach Festival and Junior Guard Competition. And before we move to discussion or questions, I'd like to just give a public acknowledgement to our police department analyst, Esmeralda, who interfaces, when you see all those events, she interfaces with every single organizer. And sometimes it's a heavy lift. And so I've asked her to stay tonight, adjust her schedule in case you all have questions that I can't answer, because she truly is the guru of events and has had a tremendous amount of patience and attention to detail, helping get these events going so that we can support them. So thank you, Esme.
All right, great. We'll go for questions first, and then we can give our 2 cents. Any questions?
So I have a question about how do you decide how many events are enough events in a particular period of time? I mean, looking at the slide that you had up there, in July and August, it's like there's 14, 15 events, and 14 in one month, 15 in the other month. And then we have like 9 in September. And, we have heard from particularly businesses in the village that perhaps there needs to be a little bit of a break between having events. So I was wondering what your criteria is for deciding if there's room to schedule another event.
So, you good with me jumping in on this, City Manager? Okay. So, great question. There is not really a criteria in place to say no more events. Back when a couple years ago, when we worked together to rewrite and make sure that our special event process was as it should be, we discovered that we needed to allow people the opportunity to ask to have events. And as it stood, we come in front of the city council and present it to you. And if the date is open, we don't turn them away when they call the police department if the date is open. If it's already taken with another event, then that is a no, especially in the space that they want to do it. And most of our events, people want to happen somewhere around the village. So there's not a system in place at this time for us to just say, no, we're full.
So if we were going to have some sort of discussion about, because it's my understanding that no one's actually applied for these events for this year yet.
How about up here? Don't be shy. And I apologize, Esme, but you have to speak into the mic so people at home can hear you.
We do have a couple of applications pending. I just got back from vacation, so I haven't processed them yet.
It's a hard issue. It certainly is for me because, I don't want to sit here and choose about which event to have, what event not to have. But it does seem like maybe as a city, we want to talk about how many events it's appropriate to have during any particular time of the year. And I don't know if anybody else is interested in us doing that, but I think the city has done I will say you've done an amazing job on updating cost and, how events are processed. That's certainly much better than it was in years past. But I'm just wondering at what point is it too much for the community? Perhaps we could get some of the businesses to talk about, because what they're saying to me is on a lot of those events, it really impacts their businesses, and usually not in a positive way, more in a negative kind of way. So I'd like to see us, have something that says, 4 major events in a month, not 5, or, 3 major events in a month. I don't know exactly what the answer is or what it should be, but it seems like there should be some dialogue at some point about that. So thank you.
You're welcome. Question?
Yeah, just a follow-up to that. So would you think that dialogue would be between the city and like the BIA and a couple of community members? Like, how would you establish that? What were your thoughts?
Well, I think that could be a good approach. Certainly we would want to involve the businesses in the village. I think, want to involve, the community somehow to figure out how to do this. But, we've never talked about it, and it just keeps growing. And at some point, we're going to reach a point where it's going to be overwhelming. And I think it would be better to have some thoughtful discussion about it prior to reaching that point. But I certainly think in the end, it has to come back to the council, and the council would have to figure out what what we wanted to do, but we would like to have lots of input before we made that decision.
All right, thanks for sharing that. So a couple questions I had, like when there is a, I think Maker's Mark or something like that, that they sell items, those are taxable items, and then is that sales tax that is generated and then reported back to the city as sales tax? How's that?
So the technical answer is yes, that they have to get a business license to operate in the city during the festivals, and yes, they're required to pay sales tax on it.
So the Maker's Mark, if they have 20 different vendors at that event, we make sure that there's business license for all 20 of the vendors?
I'm going to defer to Director Bryant for that question.
Good evening. So for vendors that apply for the makers markets, they do an application. That application includes what that they need to provide information on what is required to sell goods within the county, and it's a pretty standard list across the county. And then on top of that, they pay a fee in order to be a selected booth. And I believe that fee currently is about $111 per booth site in order to be part of it. And so every time that they participate, they have that vendor fee.
So that is a business license then? Or is that just a part of the fee?
The vendor fee is not a business license. It is a fee that they pay in order to participate in the event. And so for our food trucks, for example, they also pay a very similar fee in order to participate in the event.
I was just trying to, I've heard, sometimes some of the negative comments are like, well, they're probably not paying sales tax. I just wanted to ensure that, that there is sales tax revenue being generated for these events from vendors that need to pay sales tax. So I thank you for that clarification. I see our finance director, maybe wants to set it straight.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the business license, there's a threshold of about $3,000 of gross sales before they trigger the requirement for a business license. And most of those folks are probably not hitting that at a single day event. So I think that's why they just do the fee instead of the business license.
And then the sales tax would just...
the sales tax will go automatically like it does through the state.
Perfect, thank you. A question back to our chief. So when an event is going on, a minor event or something like that, what is an enforcement part so if there's a permit that gets approved and I'm just gonna make it, there's 20 vendors and all of a sudden 40 vendors show up, or they're outside of the areas of the permit. What is the procedure and the process that the city follows? And I think it falls to the police department. How does that ensure to make sure that that's taken care of? And if you could elaborate on that, if there is a challenge, it's probably pretty hard to deal with that challenge at that time. If there's 10 extra vendors that show up, I doubt at that time you'd be sending them away or, but working out what would be the follow-up to that and how would we enforce that to not happen again in the future?
So, good question. This actually came up when I met with the BIA board. We discussed this. And when something like that happens, so the answer to the first part of your question, do we police the events in that way in a minor event? 10 tents versus 40 tents, what they said they were going to have, and then they break that agreement? No, we don't. However, moving into this next year, I've acknowledged through talking to these various stakeholders that we do need some level of oversight. It's who's going to go and check that if an event says that they're only going to have 10 tents and they actually have 50. So when that information comes back, when we meet with the event organizer, that will be part of the discussion of that they need to stay within the parameters. We don't, on minor events where the police are involved in not the obvious ways, if there's public safety things going on, closing streets. But as far as going down when an event's happening and counting the tents, we have not done that historically.
Is that I've just heard of it being a concern. Is that something that maybe we could look at trying to monitor a little bit closer coming up to the upcoming year? I know like when there's, vendors selling things on the beach or in a wagon or something like that, I've seen the CSO going down and making contact with them. Just was wondering, maybe it's just something that we can be more vigilant about this upcoming year.
Yes. So moving into the summer, my hope is to have our multi-service officers staffed, and that would be a task through the police department that I would assign to them to go down and do some level of enforcement. There's, to my knowledge, I would have to research it. I'm not sure that there's a code for violating that part of our rule, but if you're the vending of the gentleman that will walk and sell ice cream, we have a code for that. We can cite people for that. So yes, we can put a system in place.
I mean, I want to be warm and welcoming, but it seems like the events some of these events seem like they grow a little bit, and maybe they're not, and maybe it's more of communication. Just around that, what is the process of, if we agree on what these events are, and somebody comes in and wants a major event, what does the process look like for somebody to go through that? Outside, if this is all discussed and we resolve it, and somebody wants to come in with a major event for on the shoulder season thing, what is the process an applicant goes through? Can you let me know how?
So to just kind of put it succinctly, what happens is they'll come to the police department and ask, is this date, here's what I'd like to do, is this date available? And we meet with them, look at what their plan is, if the date is available. Then we look at the plan, what their asks are, and as long as they're reasonable in the sense that they're asking for what most major events are, occupying space, closing down streets, we are required to bring it to council. And we present it to you from an objective standpoint to show you what they're asking and what resources they'll need to have the event. And a decision is, we receive direction from city council to say yes or no.
And then if it needed to go to coastal or something like that, then that process would go after the council's made an approval.
Correct. This coastal portion of it will be new to us. So I would envision, go ahead, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll just clarify that when there's a permit that requires a coastal development permit that has no other planning permits attached to it, the city council is the decision maker on that. So for tonight, when you give us direction and you can make a motion to adopt a resolution, it will not go to coastal commission unless appealed to coastal commission. This is the final action in front of you tonight.
I'm sorry. My question maybe wasn't clear. So if somebody came in and wanted a certain event, that's a major one, and it wasn't on the list, it would then be brought back to us in approval. But let's say it's an event that's charged and it has coastal impact to it. We're going to be making a decision on what the guidelines are from a coastal permit outline.
Yes, you will make the decisions on the coastal development permit.
Okay, thank you for that. And I do just have one more minor thing with the list that you have put up there. The only thing I would like to just hear from the other council members are, I think the BIA this year started a holiday lighting little event, and it seems like it was very successful, and I could see that growing. And so I would like to see if we could add that in as an event, just list it out so it's not something that doesn't come back to us in the future. And that's all the question I had. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Jensen, as a minor event?
Correct.
Okay.
Mayor, there's a couple points I think might be helpful for the council to hear on a couple of the questions that I've heard. One minor nuance around the events in coastal is that certain events that take place over the water, for example, the fireworks, actually did require approval from Coastal Commission. So there was actually a Coastal Commission issuance of, I think it was a 3-year permit most recently for the fireworks. So most of the events, I think, fall within our purview, but certainly some events could fall within Coastal Commission's original jurisdiction. Secondarily, I also wanted to mention, since we've had this update, we did this comprehensive, as Chief Ryan indicated, this comprehensive update of our ordinance about how we issued the special event permits, probably 2.5 years ago, I think, something like that. we've had one major special event that came in during the middle of the summer, and it was an application, VWish's, the VW car show. And for those of you who were on council, you'll recall that they came in, I think they originally asked for a weekend in August. And at that time, the council said no, that our resources could not accommodate further events during that period of time, and directed them to come back at a time of year when our resources were higher. And so they ended up, I believe they're scheduled in May now. And so they came back and then they subsequently got council approval. So we've only had one, I think, major new SCP come before council under the new ordinance. Chief Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong. And that was kind of the process and the way that that evolved over time.
No, that's accurate.
I have a question. Is it going to trigger any more fees for this coastal permit?
No, we bundled this in with the update tonight so that it would be no cost.
I think this is just a clarifying question. Chief Ryan, you mentioned the process of securing a date for an event, and if the calendar is free, then there's a possibility, meaning there is a potential for us to completely fill our calendar with events.
As it stands now, as that was sort of piggybacked with Councilmember Westman's question, there is not guidelines for us to say to Esmeralda, you can say no to the public.
Right.
We cannot block that request.
I see. So going back to what Councilmember Westman brought up, I think it's great to proactively think about what the cap would be and what it would look like. I mean, currently we have a ton of awesome events already, and which is beneficial for our community, beneficial for the businesses in the village. It defines what our city, but when is it overwhelming for our residents? When is it too much? When is the traffic going to impact us too much? I mean, currently in the summer, for example, I try to avoid driving into the village because of the traffic. We bike down. So I think it's worth a conversation, and I want to see maybe staff or us figure out a way to decide what the cap would be, and have that conversation with their stakeholders.
And I wanted to, for me, when we talk about that, for me, there's a real difference in events that, the recreation department wants to put on, or events, the city wants to put on, or like filling the boot the fire department does. I mean, we have all of those listed here as, events going on. So I think we could talk about, what are city events and what are events that are being put on by a private promoter who's really just doing the event because that's how they make their money. That's quite different than an event that's being, to me, that's quite different than an event that's being put on because, we want to have some activity in the city. So, sort of break down the kinds of events and who's putting them on and what does it do for Capitola and Capitola's community and other organizations.
I would love to go to public comment and then continue our discussion. I don't have any questions at this time, but I'll open the floor to the public.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for bringing this up. Great topic. Melinda had a lot of really good points, but one thing that you said is a question we get a lot on the BIA, which is, doesn't the business love these events? And they don't love all of them because, to Councilmember Westman's point, imagine all the Art and Wine Festival booths are up blocking entrance to your building, but they go, yeah, it's not great, but we earn a ton, we make a ton of money, and most of it goes to the chamber, and then the chamber helps us. So it's a day we enjoy. So there is this sort of financial implication to the businesses. And I think when the events come in and look at the calendar and you walk through the process, I think there should be a check in with the BIA executive group on new and individual events and just get their input on how they feel. They don't necessarily get to have a vote, but I love working with that group. There's some really savvy, smart business people on the BIA, and they're really struggling. So if we could include the BIA executive group in the process, it adds another layer of bureaucracy, but I think they'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just adding this to potentially to the wish list to pull some data on how these events positively affect our community. Because we do know, like on plein air, the community events, like those are no-brainers. We got them. Some of the nonprofit events like Wharf to Wharf, like really what they give to the schools. But there's other events that are promoter events. And so if there would be a way to track, like, for example, the pulse of the BIA after those events, or maybe sales tax revenue greatly increased that weekend, just to start to have some benchmarks to actually apply some data on how we approve major events and really how it affects the city beyond the it feels like. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. And I think we're kind of talking about next steps moving forward as to how we might want to either cap things or at least get the conversation started with the BIA and city staff moving forward. So what are you leaning towards?
I'm actually at the point where I'm willing to make a motion.
Okay.
And my motion would be that we approve the resolution, authorizing the 2 coastal permits, and that we direct staff to come up with a plan of, how we would engage the businesses and the communities. And once that's done, come back to the city council and we can talk about events when we have more information about them and how they work and what's going on. So that would be my motion.
A question on the motion. Would you then hold on any future approvals until that process has happened?
At this point, I think this year has started. There are people who are already planning for the year. So I wouldn't hold on any permits until that process is started. I'm really concerned about what's going to be happening in the future. And I think we do need to have a policy for the future. But, I wouldn't stop someone from coming in and applying right now.
Right. Thanks for that clarification. And with that, I'll second that.
I'd like to add, we do have a good mechanism, and the chief has said that we are the ones that decide on what permits will be given. So, but I think it's important that we do bring this back and have comments, discussions, and do the right things. So,
right. I mean, I'm not opposed. I agree with everybody. I think a lot of them are great. A lot of them are, it's not to be negative. It's just to make certain we don't get ourselves in trouble in the future.
Great. Well, before roll call, I'll just add, do you need a clarification or?
No, I think this motion is fine. I think staff's clear on the direction. The one thing I just wanted to put out there so everyone kind of a expectation check is understand that we went through this whole process with the special event ordinance and really did a kind of a deep dive with the legal team into this. And there's a lot of legal implications around sort of free speech and these permits. So I think when we do that, when we come back, I think bringing some of that information will be helpful for council to understand sort of the kind of the 4 squares in the box in which we can operate about how we can sort of say no, how we can say yes, and kind of where we have the flexibility.
Great, thanks. I would just like to echo what Vice Mayor Jensen said about the holiday tree lighting. It was a really nice event, but what did I say to you the next day? I was like, I wish we closed the roads. So I know that adds more, but maybe that's something that we can
look into, or at least just having some presence. Plus, it's fun. And yeah, I think I'm interested in the feelings for capping the major events. I'm hesitant on minor events only because I want Capitola to remain open. I don't want people to be discouraged to come and at least ask. And if it is going to come to council no matter what, I think that's a good route to take no matter what anyways. So yes, great. We have our motion. Maybe we have a roll call.
Will we have to amend it to add the Christmas tree lighting in?
It's fine with me to add.
No, I just want to make sure it gets put in.
I believe it'd be a minor.
Madam Clerk?
I believe it'd be a minor SEP, which staff can issue.
Well, you said road closure.
Well, maybe not road closure, not like
The
not like
drop-off
the
area.
monitor. Monitor, yes. It
Or
was
just-
like literally right after we lit the tree, and all the kids were going to talk to Santa, and then some dudes backing out of the parking spot and like pulling through. I just was like, oh, it'd be so great to just like have somebody monitoring.
Having some dedicated presence.
Yes, that would be great.
It wouldn't be pulled away for
I
something.
mean, maybe they could wear those cool outfits.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I think it can even just be the drop off,
yeah.
just that one section of the drive pass through.
We will, I think we'll engage with the, I think it's the BIA that makes that happen. So we'll engage with them when it comes back around this next year. Oh, come up to the microphone.
Closing that section,
You have to speak into the microphone.
so closing that section of the Esplanade is still, we allow minor events to do that because cars can still get through the village. So you wouldn't have to get a major permit for that.
Thank you.
That's
Or
amazing.
pre-approval, yeah,
Perfect.
as long as it doesn't impede traffic to get through. The POA did that for National Night Out this year.
Oh, okay.
Closed that one section, it was still a minor event, and it didn't have to come to council, because minor events don't have to be presented.
Amazing. Thank you, Esme, for all that you do. Appreciate it. All right. Are we amended as far as we need to be?
So I don't believe that the motion is needs to be amended, but if Councilmember Westman would like to amend the motion to include that, I can include it. The motion on the floor right now is to adopt the resolution as presented by staff for the coastal development permit for the 2 events in 2026 and direct staff to come up with a plan to engage local businesses in the community and return to the city council to further discuss special events.
That's correct.
Great.
Motion stands. We'll take a roll call.
Okay, Councilmember Clark.
Aye.
Councilmember Orbach.
Aye.
Councilmember Westman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jensen.
Aye.
And Mayor Morgan.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Great job. Let's take it to 8B, local coastal program amendments for the Cliff Drive resiliency. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So before you tonight is an update to our local coastal program amendment for the Cliff Drive Resiliency Project. The background on this is the Cliff Drive Resiliency Project is to address the bluff erosion along Cliff Drive. The project extends from the western city limit into the Capitola village. This is the improvements to Cliff Drive for pedestrian and multimodal transportation. Tonight, we're not focused on the project. Tonight, we're focused on the policy document and the updates to the zoning code, which will both need to be certified by the Coastal Commission. So the project direction in August of 2024, the council reviewed the actual Cliff Drive Resiliency Project. And at that time, they told us to, the council gave direction to to have a continuous bluff protection and to rethink about the cantilevered section and the overlooks and the parking. And at that time, I think there was another update to council in the fall on this project. But at this point, there's $10 million of federal funds that are ready. And the first step to this is really getting these planning documents in place so that it can go through the process and be approved. So on September 4th, the Planning Commission reviewed the first draft of that. A portion of the amendments was sent forward with a positive recommendation. The Planning Commission had additional edits to the land use program section. And so we went through, they really had to do with multimodal amendments as well as like just details that should be updated about Hooper's Beach. And on October 2nd, a positive recommendation for the second section move forward. So this is showing the entire project, the length of the project at this point of the city-owned property section and the improvements. And this is showing the phasing over time. The next slide. So community engagement, back in August, we had a community meeting here in the community room that was well attended with a project overview and questions and answers, city council update on October 28th. And that's, I already discussed that. So why an LCP policy amendments are needed? So your local coastal program is kind of like your general plan of the coastal zone. And so anytime we're updating any policy around the coastal zone, it needs to be updated within that policy document. And also our zoning code, which is our coastal program implementation plan, also needs to be updated and certified by our coastal commission. So the proposed zoning amendments, there's amendments to the parks and open space. This is where we would add to the land use table an allowance to move forward with stabilization of Cliff Drive. There's geological hazards amendments bringing up to date just current definitions and expanded purpose statement. Next slide. And our ESHA, our environmentally sensitive habitat area, that section of code to be updated to just to talk about resource dependent uses and also our parking and loading. There's a lot of references within both the land use program and there was one reference, I think, within our parking section of our code about the Southern Pacific Railroad. So those have all been updated to the Regional Transportation Commission. Next slide. And then for the land use program, which is that long range planning document as part of our LCP, there are updates to the public access section as well as the natural hazards. And that is a lot to do with like bringing up to date those descriptions because a lot has changed to our wharf and Hooper's Beach and different sections along Cliff Drive, updating outdated references and just talking about climate change and adaptation. And then at the September 4th meeting, the Planning Commission, as I stated, made additional changes and they're listed within the document and on the slide. I won't go through line item by line item, but that was why we continued and had one more review. Next slide, please. So after the two Planning Commission meetings, the Coastal Commission reached out to me and said, actually, there's a few other things we'd like you to change. We went through their list and a couple of them made it into the document. And I talked with our legal staff. They're unsubstantial changes. They're not policy changes. It's really just cleaning up the language. So we put those changes and they were in your staff report in red line format. So with that, we've got a really long recommended action. The first is to introduce the first reading by title only, waiving further reading of the text, an ordinance establishing the Capitola Municipal Code, Title 17 Zoning, Chapter 17.32 Parks and Open Space, Chapter 17.64 ESHA, Chapter 17.76 Parking and Loading, and Chapter 17.68 Geological Hazards. And authorizing submittal to the California Coastal Commission for certification. And the second part of the recommended action is to adopt a resolution amending the Capitola Land Use Plan, Chapter 2 Public Access, and Chapter 7 Natural Hazards, and authorize submittal to the California Coastal Commission for certification. And 3, find that the above actions are exempt from the CEQA. So with that, I'm here and available for any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Clark, any questions?
No questions at this time.
No questions.
Let's go to public comment on this item. Seeing none, I will bring it back for deliberation.
I will move the recommended action.
So I had one minor word change I would like. And, well, one correction I think actually should be made. And that's in number 7, the Capitola Land Use Plan Part 2 on page 33. It's a policy and it's talking about Cliff Drive. And I don't have any difficulty with the policy for what should happen on Cliff Drive. But when we get into the implementation, we talk about Cliff Drive, the village, and the Park Avenue area. And I think the village and the Park Avenue area should be eliminated there because the implementation is for Cliff Drive, not the other parts of the city. So just removing those words. It's on page 33, at the very bottom, implementation.
Okay, it says develop multimodal improvement plan for the Cliff Drive / Village / Park Avenue area and seek funds for development.
Right. But if you read the part at the top, it's really just discussing Cliff Drive.
Yes, that's correct.
I think it's just one of those old things that didn't get picked up.
Page 237 of the packet, page 33 in the land use program, but 237 of the packet, the very bottom.
And I don't think the Coastal Commission would have any objection.
I'll look to the attorney to make sure that.
So, just for clarification from our community development director, I believe that's the text, that's the language as it exists today. And the strikeout is.
Yeah, the Village, Park Avenue area.
Yeah, so currently it reads develop a bicycle plan for the Cliff Drive / Village / Park Avenue area and seek RTC funds for development. And the edit was to change bicycle to multimodal and cross off RTC. And you're suggesting crossing off Village, Park Avenue area.
Because it's the implementation of policy 2-4, which is.
Just a reminder to speak into the microphone. Thank you.
It's the implementation of policy 2-4, which refers to Cliff Drive.
Yeah. So the policy was modified in this update. The original policy was also about Cliff Drive, but it was to provide a safe pedestrian and bicycle path and or sidewalk on and along Cliff Drive and provide improvements, including landscaping benches, etc., for parking turnout areas to facilitate both pedestrian and auto use. Yep. So it's been updated to expand upon the project.
And I don't have, it just shows the bottom part doesn't match what was changed.
So I'm looking at the land use plans. This is just the old language, right? You're going to make some changes already.
What is underlined is the new language. On the policy, we changed the policy. And so I want the implementation to match our new policy change.
Okay.
Jamie nodded it was okay.
Yes, I saw that. So we're good?
Yes, we can treat this as a clerical update that does not amount to a substantive change, just given the mismatched language.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Orbach, do you accept the amendment to your motion? Because you did make a motion before the edit.
Sure, yes.
Then I'll second the motion.
Great. We have a first and a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Clark?
Aye.
Councilmember Orbach?
Aye.
Councilmember Westman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jensen?
Aye.
And Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Thank you. Passes unanimous. Take us to item 8C, our annual 5-year impact fee report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This next item before you is the annual, we call the AB 1600 report, which is for development impact fees. Development impact fees, as I just said or mentioned, are governed by Assembly Bill AB 1600 and codified in the government code sections I have listed up there, which requires us to do an annual report as well as a 5-year reporting of what the plan is over the next 5 years. The fees that Capitola has that are subject to this reporting include the affordable housing impact fee, affordable housing in lieu fee, tree replacement in lieu fee, bike parking in lieu fee, and public art fees. The purpose of impact fees is to offset the impacts of new development limited to the proportionate share of those impacts. So developers are required to make a one-time contribution to offset those impacts, but it cannot be towards correcting existing deficiencies at the time the project starts. So the first one is housing impact fees. This is for, with affordable housing, the law requires 15% of the project for residential projects to be set aside or allocated to affordable housing, which requires 7 units, so you can have one of them set aside to get your 15%. So for projects that are 6 or less units, it's $25 a square foot. And it's just an impact fee because there is no way for them to dedicate 15%. We had a balance of 144, almost 145,000 in there at the end of the year, and we've programmed 121 of that for first-time homebuyer assistance and housing rehabilitation loans. Next slide, please. Next is the housing in lieu fees. So this is basically the same fee, but for projects of 7 or more units, so they can set aside 1 out of every 7, or they could pay the in lieu fee, which again is $25 a square foot for those units. We had a ending balance last year of just under 205,000, and that was left over from the Pacific Cove loan that we paid off a couple years ago, and those funds are going to be programmed for housing rehabilitation projects. The other 3 I'll kind of do in one fell swoop. Tree replacement fees, we used the majority of that last year that we had for tree work, I think along Park Avenue if I remember correctly, but we pretty much spent most of that down. Bike parking and lieu fees, that is tied to the outdoor dining program, and we just had one of the participants that paid that, so that $1,200 we talked earlier about the Sea-Wet bike racks out on the wharf, the $1,200 was used as part of the city's portion to fund those bike racks. And then public art fees, those are collected for public art on projects. We had an ending balance of about 100,000, and right now we have around 65,000 identified for future public art projects. And then the Art and Cultural Commission goes through and identifies additional projects as resources become available. So this report complies with the AB 1600 Mitigation Fee Act. It helps ensure transparency and accountability. Acceptance of the report by council tonight has no fiscal impact, and staff recommends adopting the resolution for the fiscal year 24-25 development impact fee. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Question? Could you just, maybe I wasn't listening right, but the in lieu housing fee, which was $25 per square foot, that's if someone isn't building an affordable unit?
Correct.
I mean, it seems to me that it costs a lot more than $25 a square foot to build an affordable unit. Why wouldn't everyone just pay the fee and not provide the unit?
And I think, if I remember correctly, that we do these kind of like our regular citywide fee schedule, where we take a look at them about every 5 years. And I believe Director Hurley, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're due to look at that again this next fiscal year. I want to say towards fall.
Well,
so we would be looking at them again during
I
this.
think we should. Yeah. Thank you.
Jim, just a question. You said that in lieu tree replacement money was used for Park Avenue, and that was for tree trimming. As I read it, shouldn't some of that focus be like replenishing the trees in the community? And so, how can we, is that true, or?
We have a tree in lieu fee, and then we also have a forestry management one. And I might have those mixed up. The tree in lieu might be for replacing trees, and the forestry management might be the one that we used for. I could have those mixed up, actually.
I think we just have the tree in lieu fee is the one fee, but the allowed number of uses on it is pretty expansive. We've done a number of tree giveaways in the community using the tree in lieu fund, and I think this was a source of funding. We've been having trouble sort of utilizing that balance, and we are up against some timelines for under AB 1600 to utilize the funds, and so they were used, I think, for that Park Avenue project.
Yeah, and I just like to, highlight is that it'd be great if we're, planting trees and providing shade and, a more pleasant community neighborhood rather than, using money to cut down more trees. Or, I understand the maintenance and we have budget constraints and stuff, but that was just my comment around that. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'd like to respond to your first question about the housing in lieu fee. So the housing in lieu fee is different from the housing impact fee, and it's triggered when you build 7 homes. Then the housing in lieu fee is triggered. So at that point, if you were to pay the housing in lieu fee it wouldn't be just for 1 home. It would be paying $25 a square foot for all 7 homes. So it would amount to a substantial amount of money compared to just 1 house for redevelopment. And then the impact fee is separate, and it's for when you have a development of less than 7 homes, when you're not required to have a deed restricted house as part. Once you hit 7, one of the homes has to be deed restricted, or you can pay the in lieu fee. The housing impact fee is for less than 7 units at $25 a square foot.
But you pay the fee on all of the 7 units that are built.
If you were with the in lieu fee, if you were asking to pay the in lieu, you'd be paying it on all 7 units.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much. That makes more sense because I couldn't figure out the other one.
You're welcome.
I did have the same question. So Susan, you and I are on the same wavelength tonight because I quickly did a Google AI search about asking the question of how much it costs to build affordable housing units in California. And the search told me it's $640 per square foot. $25 seemed very outdated. $6 for rental, for multifamily rental seems very low. So I'd like to see what it would take for us to update the fees and for staff to bring back some more information during our next budget cycle.
Yeah, this can definitely be a or part of the topic of setting our goals for next year.
So with all that said, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution.
To public comment real quick.
Didn't we?
Did we?
I thought we did.
Yeah. Because last time there wasn't anybody, so it went quick. That's all right. You're excited. It's good. Any public comment? Oh, okay. I'm going to take it back to Councilmember Westman.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the fee resolution in the staff report.
And I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. We'll move to 8D, audit report. Jim can stay.
Good evening again. As the mayor just mentioned, this next item is our annual comprehensive financial report, otherwise known as our annual audit. We are required by law to have financial statements prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and those financial statements need to be audited by an independent licensed certified public accountant firm to make sure that we're complying with all of our state and federal requirements. Next slide, please. This year's audit, we received an unmodified, clean opinion. That's the best opinion you can get. It sounds funky when you say unmodified, but that's the goal, is to get an unmodified opinion, which basically means that all of our financial statements are fairly presented and accurate to the best of what we can tell. Our auditor this year was Chauvin and Associates. Under best management practices, we change auditors. We try to change every 5 years, and this was their second year of the 5-year contract. We will be submitting this year's audit to the Government Finance Officers Association for an annual award we've received since 2012 for excellence in financial reporting. Anticipate we'll get it again this year. Prior to 2012, we were submitting to the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers, which is basically the same award, but at the state level. We could only do one, so we switched over to the national level or national award in 2012. So a quick snapshot. So again, a clean, unmodified audit opinion. So citywide total revenues were $25.2 million against total expenditures of $25.6, which means our net position decreased by $400,000 on a citywide, looking at the citywide all funds, to an ending net position of $43.9 million. For the general fund, and I'll get into some of these a little bit more details, the general fund, we had a $6 million balance on June 30th. Capital assets net of depreciation was $52.8 million. Long-term liabilities, $35.2 million. And again, there's no audit findings or management concerns this year's audit. So for net position, I will first start by saying that deferred outflow and deferred inflow numbers up there are accounting gymnastics for the pension liability that just started a few years ago with Government Accounting Standards Board number 68, pronounced it 68. So total assets are $72.6 million plus deferred outflows of resources of 9.8, offset against, excuse me, 36.8 million of liabilities and an additional deferred inflow of resources of 1.6, which gets us to the 43.9 million net position that I mentioned. Again, that's citywide. Again, general fund, $6 million balance consisted of 1.6 million of the emergency reserve, 2.4 million in our contingency reserve, 1.7 million in our CalPERS trust account, and unassigned is 300,000. That unassigned number, when we're looking at budgeting and we say our target general fund, our target balance is 500,000, in a perfect world, that's what that number would be. So right now we're about 200,000 below kind of the low number that we would want to see. We started off in a good position, so it's not overly traumatic, but still something we're watching really close. On general fund operations, we had total revenues of 19.3 million. Again, our major sources are taxes and charges for services. Those that revenue is about 377 below what our budget projections were, and I'll get into a little more detail on that in a second. On the expense side, we were at 20.5 million, so we spent a little bit more than we brought in. Our biggest expense is public safety, and we were citywide, not just public safety, citywide, we were $134,000 over budget. That makes it, the slide makes it look like that was all public safety, but that was citywide. So net impact to the general fund was a negative 511. So going back to that previous slide with the 300, we started last year with 811,000. So we were over our target. Now this year we're below, so we need to get that, be real cognizant of that as we go through mid-year and next year's budget. Next slide, please. So the main drivers of the revenue shortfall, sales tax, which was this one, Jamie and I are going to have to dig into a little bit. We were low, about 220,000 on our Bradley Burns 1% sales tax projection, but we were over 70,000 on districts, which we think is because of the shift as people are doing more online and getting away from brick and mortar, and our sales tax is moving away from directly coming from the retailers. It's going through the pool, but we need to dig into that a little bit. But I will say, even though it was 150,000 below our target, it was still about 0.5% over the prior year's receipts. So our projection was about a 2.3% growth, and we only saw about a 0.5% growth. So it's not necessarily a decline in revenues, it's just not growing at the same rate that we anticipated. And the same for the TOT, we had anticipated about a 1% growth. It stayed flat last year. So it didn't really change. It was maybe 30 or 40,000 higher than the year before. It didn't go down, just didn't grow. Parking citations was 168,000 below budget, and I would say that that is primarily due to staffing challenges. If I go to the prior year, we are almost exactly the same as we were the year before, and when you look at staffing, our staffing was at the same levels. So I think that revenue will pick up as we build that staff back up, which which is the same thing I said last year, except we added 2 people who then went to the police academy. So we're starting over again there. Not necessarily a bad thing. Parking revenue, I had projected about $180,000 increase in revenue. We saw about a $100,000 increase, so we missed that one as well. And then cannabis tax was about $45,000 short, and that was due to one of the retailers being shut down for probably 3 or 4 months out of the year before they reopened. So I expect that one, was it 6? I expect that one to come back. Our target is 300,000. It was pretty flat before they closed. We dropped down to 255. I think that one will come back. And then all of the other revenues that we have, franchise fees, recreation fees, planner cost recovery, building permits, business license, all of those lumped together, we came out 166 to the positive. But it was a lot of stuff to put on one slide for that amount. On the expenditure side, the main drivers, the 2 big ones were the city attorney's office, and that was due to a number of complex projects, as well as, I think, a very high level of Public Records Act requests that we had last year compared to other years. That one actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I was much more nervous about that one. Community services and recreation went over their expenditure budget. But I will say they also, when they do that, because it's program driven, it's because they have more folks in their program. So it's offset by revenues, almost an equal amount. I want to say it was like 55,000 of revenue. So when they go over, it's offset by revenue. It's hard to tease out when you look at the financial statements because it doesn't show that their revenue's over. It just shows that all charges for services didn't make up that difference. But so recreation went over, but not, they covered theirs. And then general government, I still need to go through that one. It's 27,000. That's another accounting rule that I don't like. And when I go through now and I kind of tease out every single line item that we have in the budget and start preparing for mid-year and for next year, I'll be able to tell you what that 27 is when I come back at mid-year. So this is my teaser slide to get you guys ready for Jamie and my whining session during budget hearings when we talk about sales tax not keeping up with CPI. So our biggest tax revenue, our taxes are our biggest revenue at 15.6. Sales tax is 8.6 of that, and it's grown 9.9% over the last 10 years, which sounds really good, but that's not keeping up with inflation. Property tax, 3.3 million, has grown a little over 50% over the last 10 years, and that's being driven by the property values and market turnover. TOT, similar, grown by 55% over the last 10 years. The 2 things that impacted TOT was Measure J in 2018 when we went from a 10% to a 12% TOT, and the beach house audit. Once we were done with that, we've seen our TOT revenues in the village almost triple. Franchise tax, business license, and cannabis tax are the other big ones that make that up. The franchise tax grows kind of similar to the property tax and TOT. The other 2 stay fairly flat. Next slide, please. For general fund expenses, general government, which includes city council, the city manager's office, the city attorney's office, admin services, which is finance, personnel, and IT, and community grants, that's 4.6 million. Public safety, 7.9. Community development, 844,000. Culture and recreation and public works. So what I will say is the way accounting rules make us group culture and recreation, we throw the parks maintenance in there, which is really public works. So that 0.9, I would say doesn't really belong. It's parks. So I would take 0.9 off of the culture and recreation and add it down to the public works because public works does the park maintenance. I just wanted to show it the same way that it shows up in the audit so that way it matches up. And then capital outlay was 315,000. Next slide. Capital assets, again, this is all net of depreciation. So we had land at just under 5 million. That's been a static number as long as I've been here. Building and improvements, 15 million. Infrastructure, a little over 24 million. Equipment at 1.8. And construction in progress is about 7 million. I thought I was going to be real cool and be able to tell you exactly what that is, but it's probably about 15 different projects that have been funded over a very long time. And we can kind of tease that out when we go through our CIP budget planning for next year. Next slide, on liabilities, 35.2 million, and you can see that our CalPERS pension liability is most of that at 31.8 million. Other post-employment benefits is 1.6 million. That's an actuarial number that I have about as much faith in as I do the one above it. That's the way we pay our post-employment benefits. We would never see that number. It's a weird actuarial rule, but at any rate, we have to put it on our balance sheet. Compensated absences is 1.1 million, and that would be basically what it would cost us if every employee walked out at the same time and got all of their accrued leaves paid. So we have to carry that and show that on our balance sheet. And then the actual only debt issuance that we have is the Beach and Village parking lease from back when the 2011, when the storm drain broke. That's down to $694,000. It has 10 years left. And we pay, I think it's like 2 or 2.5% interest on that one as well. So it's really inexpensive debt.
And to clarify, we call it a lease because it's called a certificate of participation, and so it's a loan. It's a loan. It is a loan to build the Lower Paco parking lot.
So next steps, at the end of February, our second February meeting, we will have this current fiscal year's mid-year budget review. And then right after that, we will kick off with the next fiscal year 26-27 budget hearing, starting off with identifying what council's goals and priorities are. And we'll roll that out in early March. And so for tonight, the recommended action is to receive the report. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions?
I know Jerry does.
Thank you, Susan. I have about 5 questions. One thing, Jim, in your presentation, you talked about parking. It's an offset right now, so you feel it's in line with budget because of not having staff and with the revenue we're having. So, what's the benefit of having staff? I mean, if it's the same amount, are we going to make more? Like, do you anticipate it making more money once we have fully staffed?
Parking,
right now, it seems like
and I'll let the chief jump in, but I think if our parking program is running the way we ideally design it, it would be net zero. We don't really want the reputation that we're the parking Nazis, and that's how we fund our city is by parking citations. But at the same time, we need to make sure that the cars are turning over and that they're being respecting the ADA laws and all of that stuff. So through kind of the history of Capitola parking, I think they figured out the sweet spot is about 3 parking enforcement officers.
Yeah, I know last year's budget was 500,000. We increased it by 100 as income, not additional staff. So that will be income, right?
Yes, and we also increased parking citation, the fee amount last year, which was really the driver for increasing the budget. We were thinking we were getting back to fully staffed, and then we would have a higher citation amount as well.
And when you talk about cost for a parking officer or attendant, that's full cost, right? PERS and everything. So I'm just trying to make sure that as we staff up, I have maybe a little bit different belief than you. I think we should be making money in our city. And so to have, to know that is a net, to have officers, and if attendance is off or there's parking meters that aren't working and stuff, that is a negative and it's going to cost the city money. I'd like to just keep an eye on that because it doesn't seem to make sense if it's the same exact cost across the board, not having the employees to the parking. I think we should really be looking at having I agree that I don't want to create a place that Capitola is too expensive for people to come, but to make sure that it's at least a little more break even, especially with our increase in our fees. So that means that last year we weren't making money if we didn't increase our fees just recently.
So one of the ways I think about this is it's sort of the entire parking program. There's the citations and then there's the revenue off the meters. And so in that sense, we're way ahead of the game. Our parking officer cost is way less than the combined meter and the sites rate. I don't know if anyone was around when we changed to the 3-hour meters in the village. We used to be 2 and we went to 3. And actually what we ended up seeing was we saw meter revenue took about a 20% jump the next year, and site revenue took about a 20% drop, which I remember Chief Escalani at the time saying that's what we want to see, right? We'd rather have people paying the meters. So, I do think you're right, is that at the end of the day, you want to make sure your parking enforcement officers are certainly paying the way, but at the same time, I think thinking about it as a parking program is that's usually how I think about it.
Yeah. So at this time, I guess we'll see at the mid-year where we are on track. Because that number, increase from 500 to 600, I think, we had some discussions about that. Like that seemed like that was a big jump, and, it's a key indicator of revenue for the city. If we miss that, when we can't find, $10,000, $15,000 on some items, when we talk about it in city council, that's going to be a big issue when we're talking if we miss it by 100.
Yes, me, the finance director, and the police chief are all very focused on that.
Okay. So my second question, how many of these things have been and I appreciate, Jim, what you and your department done. How much of this gets reviewed with the finance, our FACT group? I know our mayor and council members sit on, but maybe just a review for myself or other the community members, how much the FACT getting involved in some of these things and potential that it looks like we're trending, that, we're at deficit spending. And so recommendations from them or, I kind of haven't really understood the full feeling of the FACT committee compared to planning is great. In the sense that it comes as recommendations back to us and we see a lot of feedback and stuff like that. And I would just, are we utilizing our FACT group to the full extent as having more recommendations or ideas that they send back, as feedback? I know it's a different sort of, from planning, with appointed and stuff like that. I think there's different. I was just wondering what involvement you use with them to help come up with ideas.
It's more on the budget planning side, because by the time I'm reporting back to the FACT, like this, I'm reporting back to you right now for June of last year. So we're already 6 months beyond that date. So it makes it hard for the FACT to recommend something to address that. So what I need to do is go to the FACT, and they've asked for more regular, quarterly reports, and might even be a monthly treasurer's report that we're going to start doing, and then looking at what caused the shortages this year or the overages, and how do we address that and prevent it from happening again next year. That would be more of the FACT's involvement, is making sure that we don't, like Jamie and I always say, if we hit 8 out of 10 years to the positive, that's pretty good. If we hit 10 out of 10, then we're probably holding resources back from you guys. But we don't want to miss 2 in a row. And this one made it tough because we missed on both sides, not just one or the other.
My next question has to do, and I was hoping that there was going to be a slide to talk about Measure Y and the impact of Measure Y, positive or negative, on this report. Because Measure Y, what impact has that had?
So this is for last fiscal year through June. Measure Y, we started collecting April, May, and June. It was 200, and I think when I went to council, it was projected 277. I think we got 287 of Measure Y during that last quarter of last year, and 227 of it was used towards the market adjustments and all of the negotiated stuff with the labor groups. But I just got first quarter of Measure Y for this year.
Right. When we started paying, we increased salaries in December of 24, correct? We didn't get sales tax in until April 1. And so that 5-month period, how was that funded?
I'm not sure I'm totally following.
I'm sorry, let me read it. If we weren't having tax revenue coming in, correct?
Then all of the stuff for that that was funded by Measure Y was contingent on the passage of Measure Y. So if Measure Y had not passed, that $227,000 of market adjustment would not have happened. It would have been zero revenue, zero expense.
The total Measure Y revenue over the 1 quarter was sufficient to cover the 6 months of the salary adjustments. The total Measure Y revenue was about 285.
285.
And the cost of the market adjustments for that year was about
225.
225.
Just seems weird because I thought, if I recall, I actively worked on Measure Y. We projected that the quarter cent sales tax was going to be like 1.1 million. So at 5 months, that'd be more than
3 months, 1 quarter.
Well,
Just the last quarter. It didn't become effective until April 1st.
But you paid.
We had April, May, and June was the only Measure Y revenue we had. Even though it was passed in November, Measure F continued through to the end of March, and then Measure F stopped and Measure Y picked up. It takes the state 3 months to get all that set up.
Can I interrupt you 1 second?
Sure.
So what you're saying is that the pay raises started, say, January 1, and the revenue to pay the pay raises didn't start until April 1st, but the revenue that you made from April 1st to June 30th was enough to cover the cost for that entire 6 months within that year's budget. So that's not the reason that we were over budget that year. Okay. I think that's.
Yeah, I'm still confused by it, and that's why I really hope that I've asked for Measure Y to be looked at in depth. I was very much adamant that I wanted to have an oversight. We didn't. We went to the general fund. I still don't understand the exact thing, and I apologize, but it's not clear to me how we were paying salary. It wasn't January. We started paying them in December, and how we're able to not have tax revenue, but we effectively gave out all the raises, and that it doesn't. I'm trying to figure out how we're at deficit spending, and I think as I connect it back, it seems to me like without revenue coming in and we're paying out revenues, I'm missing that point. So
It's a timing issue, yes. But again, the revenue that came in for those last 3 months covered the expense for the entire 6 months. It started in, I think it was December 27th, not January 1st, but the last, whatever that first pay period, that was negotiated with the labor groups. The labor groups were pushing to actually start that in July. They wanted it to be retroactive to July. We pushed back because we wouldn't have enough revenue in those last 3 months to cover a full year of market adjustments. So that was the negotiated kind of middle point, was that first full pay period of, upon passage of Measure Y, the first full pay period going into the new calendar year.
Okay. So maybe I'll just make a request, and maybe I'll see if there's a second if we're going to follow a new procedure, is to have Measure Y brought up. I would like to look at Measure Y with the total income and everything is outside of our mid-year budget, so it's not next in the numbers. My biggest thing is that I know in the future, this council or another council is going to be asked to go out and ask our community to support these sorts of things. And if I remember, myself, Councilmember Orbach, our mayor, our other council member, Joe Clark, also went out, we very highly supported this, that the money was going to come in and be used for wages, and also that there was going to be excess for projects. And it looks like all the money was used on wages. There's no extra money for projects. And it's just confusing to me on how, and I just want to make sure we tell the story. So when we go back to our community in the future and we talk about, why we need to support a measure, that we don't have talking points around certain items, and then we're come up short. We just need to be, I think, completely transparent. If our sales tax number is down, it's down. These are the reasons why. So I would hope that Measure Y can be looked at and be very, very clearly at a council meeting outside of a whole bunch of other numbers in a mid-year budget to look at. And I don't know if that takes a second from another council member to have that brought forward, but I just think we really need to hide that, because I do hear these concerns out in the community, and I'm even confused by it as a council member. And so I know if I am, I'm quite sure our community is at the same time.
Well, I do agree. I get a lot of people asking me about Measure Y and how the money was spent, and I think there's an awful lot of misinformation, out in the community about Measure Y and how it's worked, and maybe having an agenda item where we just went through it, this is the money that came in, this is how the money was spent, and this is what happened, would clear it up for everyone, not only us, but for members of the community who seem to have lots of theories about what happened. So I'd be a second on that.
Okay, and then I do have, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
One final question, and thank you, Jim, for responding to this. When you said we're going to be scheduling the mid-year, that's going to be in February, is that correct? And we'll have a better understanding of where we are from parking revenue at that time. I know the other big impact that we've always talked about is overtime for the police department, right? I mean, those are our two biggest concerns, and sales tax, right? Those are going to be the ones that affect us mostly. Yeah. I just want to really be clear, as I look at the budget, we're deficit spending, and I think we need to all be very conscious of that going forward. We can't continue to be on the pace that we're at without making some changes, and so we'll have to look at what that looks like at the mid-year. And those are all my questions. Thank you.
So it was being a member of the FAB, and the mayor is also a member. It was my understanding that we were going to have some discussion about the mid-year budget at our next meeting.
Yes, we will have a FAC meeting, I think probably the week before.
Right.
Yeah.
But we would have information about the mid-year budget at that, so we would have an opportunity to discuss it.
And by the FAC meeting, the only thing I'm probably going to be missing is the true up for sales tax, but
Right.
we'll have everything else.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a couple follow-ups. Do you mind doing just a quick little explanation of what capital outlay is? It's a $315,000.
Capital outlay is in the general fund. That one is probably like we did some kind of small expense that we didn't think was going to turn into a project that ended up turning into a project. And so then it converts. Once we get to a project that becomes like a tangible asset that's depreciable, it changes from an expense to a project. And that would be my guess on that one, because it's a really small amount for a capital project.
Okay. And then just to sort of piggyback off of the vice mayor, did we do any projections as far as increasing the citation rates and what that might look like in a lump sum for us quarterly, or is that not really available to us yet because we're not getting those numbers yet?
I would have to go back, and I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we did go through kind of what that would look like.
Okay.
But I don't, off the top of my head, I don't recall exactly what the change was and what we thought the revenue change would be. Well, I think the revenue change was going to be $100,000.
Okay, so that was in reference to what you were talking about. Okay. Okay, those are my questions. Public. Oh,
I'm sorry, I have one more question, just and totally off topic. Have we gotten back all our FEMA money?
No. We're still waiting for the wharf, but it's only been 3 years, so they're right on schedule. Yeah, it's the big, we were actually working on that today. We're still waiting for the big one from FEMA on the wharf. It's like $670,000.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Public comment. Welcome.
Hi, good evening, Leslie Nielsen. I'm on the FAC, and normally I come up and say, remind you that you work for us, but in this capacity, I work for you. I was nominated by the BIA and the Chamber of Commerce, along with Matt Arthur, to be the two business representatives on the FAC. And Melinda, I think your nominee just became our chairperson, and I just love her. And I will answer your question, Vice Mayor Jensen. I do think the FAC is underutilized. I think there's some, pretty smart capital in that group that could be participating more in a helpful way if given the opportunity to do that. And I appreciate Jim being willing to start doing more quarterly reports of the financial statements with us. Tonight's agenda item, an unmodified opinion, is great. That says the financial statements were presented fairly. It doesn't say whether the decisions leading to a deficit could have, been done differently or could be done differently going forward to avoid that. At the end of the staff report, it says, the next opportunity to review the city's financial picture, including updated revenue and expense forecasts, will be during budget hearings for FY 26 and 27. So I don't know why that's important to say at the end of an audit for last year that we're going to talk about the financial situation of the city when we start talking about next year. What about this year? We're halfway through it. And I really think we have to find an opportunity to talk about what caused the deficit spending, get clarity around Measure Y for the constituent group we all appealed to vote for it. And, I'm on the BIA, we had a meeting this morning. Well, won't there be some Measure Y money? It says in the ballot language, it'll be used for supporting business, right? We do need to understand, we should have 6 months of data. We just talked about the timing difference for the last 6 months of last year. We're halfway through the year. Where are we at? I think we could maybe tap the brakes if we need to, if we really learn and understand this more. And I think we all need to really understand this mid-year review better so that we don't have to do really deep things to manage spending later. I'd rather have a hiring freeze now than have to take salary cuts later. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to make sure we're really looking at this, and we're here to help if you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Seeing none. We'll come back to council. We're just here to receive the report, so no motion is needed. But if there's any other deliberation, we're here.
Right. It seems like the big sort of deliberation will be when we have the mid-year budget review, that first meeting in February, because we'll have actual numbers of where we are halfway through the year. And if we need to make changes or reduce things, we will have an opportunity at that meeting. So that's going to be a really important one for us.
As clarification, it's the second meeting in February.
Second meeting in February.
Get our sales tax data, I think, mid-February. So that second meeting in February, we can come with the next quarter of sales tax data.
Okay.
And I think
you'll have information from the FAB, because I still want to call it the FAB, Fabulous FAB, because that's what it used to be, the FAC, because we will have had a meeting the week before and had most of that information presented to us.
And I can provide the first 6 months of Measure Y detail outside of the regular sales tax as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And that will come to council as well, because it was...
Yeah, it'll go to the FAC at the February meeting, and then a week later, it'll come to the full council.
a separate item, because that was a supported item. Okay, great. We all good? Sweet. Right on, and we'll move to 8E, City Council representation on regional boards.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. No slides this evening, just a verbal presentation. For context for members of the public or listeners online, City Council members sit on various county and multi-jurisdictional boards, one of which is the Santa Cruz County Community Action Board. Earlier this evening, the mayor presented a proclamation thanking Kristen Brown for her service. Kristen Brown was serving as the representative for the city on that board. We received her resignation on December 1st, and at that time, we decided to put out a small notice to our council members that this item would be coming before them for review to either appoint a member of the city council to serve as a representative to this board or appoint a member of the public. At this time, I'm just asking for direction. If the council would like to appoint a representative from amongst yourselves to that group, that would be great. If not, I can advertise this vacancy to the public in case a member of the public would like to serve. The term for this will expire in December of 2027, so about a year from now. And so I'm available for any questions, and the full list of council assignments to regional boards and advisory bodies is on our website. It was also included in the agenda packet, and this board meets on the third Wednesday of the month, with its next meeting being on January 21st.
Great, thank you. Sure. Any questions or anybody willing to be appointed? If anybody is.
Well, it seems like it either has to be Melinda or Jerry, because the other three of us wouldn't be available to serve for a 2-year term. Come on, Melinda.
I had originally volunteered myself because I do truly believe in the mission of the Community Action Board. But in looking at my schedule and all I have to do, I really feel stretched, and I do not want to commit to something I cannot fully commit to. And it would not be fair to be on a board of CAB if I cannot fully be a participant. So I would respectfully decline.
I'll also add this is one of the groups where members of the public can be appointed. So even if a council member was to term off the council and not run for reelection, you could still serve on this board as a representative of Capitola. It's not something that's tied to council member service.
I guess we'll reach out to the public.
I think that sounds like a great idea. Should we go to public comment?
Sure.
Let's do that. And I don't see any, so we'll come back. And it sounds like we'll continue the item and put it out for public interest.
Sure. We will advertise the vacancy to the public and we'll bring back any interested persons if they apply.
It sounds like a great board to be a part of if you are getting more interested in our city's activities and interested in the goings-ons. Okay, do we need a vote for that?
No, I received direction. I'm good to go.
Okay, wonderful. So that takes us to the final item, 9, adjournment. Everybody's waited for this. That is our first meeting of the year. Everybody be good to one another and yourselves.